Hello, it is Wednesday, March 18th, 2020, and I'm here to talk to you about changes in documentation for school-based prevention and school-based treatment. This is kind of an overview of the things we're going to talk about in the following slides. So the first thing is that every client needs one telebehavioral informed consent addendum in their chart. It doesn't matter which clinician does this if multiple clinicians work with that client, as long as each client has one. So we're going to watch a video and talk about how to add that. Additionally, starting today, we can use our regular documentation for a phone session if there is a clinician intervention and a client response to that intervention in the phone call. We're going to talk about that a little bit more and what that means. But that means in prevention, if we do an intervention and a client responds to the intervention, we're able to use our school brief early intervention note. And if we have the same thing happen in treatment, then we can use our individual psychotherapy note. So just a little brief note about those differences. If I'm calling a client, I'm saying, "Hi, this is Erica from Santero," and we do all of the things that we need to do for our introduction. And then I say, "How are you doing today?" And the client says that they're doing just fine and that they don't really need to talk to me and that, they think that they're not going to need to talk to me in the following weeks, then that would just be a consultation note and that hasn't changed. But if we're working about anxiety and I use an intervention with them and then they have a response to that intervention, then we can use either the school brief early intervention note for that or the individual psychotherapy note for that if they're in treatment. Lastly, another big change is that the location of service should always be O2 telehealth. So I have a picture on the next slide of what that's going to look like in your schedule. So when you go to put activities on your schedule, we would do school or office before. Now everything is going to be that O2 telehealth. So I have a video here that I pre-recorded on how to add a telebehavioral informed consent addendum to your client's chart. This is on YouTube, and I'm going to send everybody a link so that you can watch this if you need a little bit more assistance on how to do this. This video is going to show you how to add a telebehavioral informed consent addendum for each of your clients. So from the client's ECR, you hover over Client, go to Admission Discharge Documents, and then Telebehavioral Informed Consent Addendum. Now, when you click on this, it'll take you to the list of all of the addendums that have already been filled out. If your client has one already, you do not have to do another one. We only need one of these on file for each client. We're going to pretend like these are not here, as I was practicing earlier, and we're going to go up here and add an addendum. So this is going to give you a bunch of information that you need to read over to your client to make sure that they understand what they're agreeing to. There might be some questions here. Try to answer those the best you can. Make sure that they understand and they agree to the statements that you're saying. So down here when it says, "Is this a psychiatric intake appointment?" you will click no. And then what you're signing is this right here, and that's that you reviewed everything with them, the client's questions were answered, and that the client gave verbal consent for the telebehavioral health services. Once you've gone through all of this with the client, you hit submit, and then you sign it. And then you can see that your client has one of these on file. So like I said before, each client only needs one of these. Every clinician that works with that client does not have to do a telebehavioral informed consent addendum. So before you get into this with your client, definitely check and make sure that they don't already have one. Let me know if you have any questions, or let your supervisor know if they have any questions, if you have any questions. Thank you. So you're going to each get this document if you're doing school-based prevention, and this is going to kind of walk you through the changes that are going into effect today. So there's one of these for prevention, and there's one of these for treatment, and they look kind of similar, but they have different colors. So those of you who are doing treatment will get two versions of this. We have this in a PDF, and it's going to be sent out to you as well with a link to this video, so you should have this. So the first question you're asking yourself is, does your prevention client have a telebehavioral health addendum? If the answer, and then if you see underneath that question, it shows you how to access that document. If the answer is no, then you add a telebehavioral health addendum to the document to the client's chart. You read through all the statements with the client and then you sign the document. Again, each client only needs one and the provider does not matter. So then once you have done that, the answer is then yes. And then your next question is, are you speaking with the parent or the client? So if you're speaking with a parent, the note is going to be a school consultation note, just like it's always been. If you're talking with a client, you have one more question you need to answer. And that is the phone call. Is the phone call a session with a client? I'm sorry, let me say that again. Is the phone call a session with clinician intervention and client response? So we talked about that a little bit earlier. Is it a brief check-in where you're not providing an intervention and getting a client response? Or is it a full session where you're actually doing an intervention and getting a response and working towards some goals there? So if it was just a brief check-in, you'll see in this first box that you should use a school consultation document. And if it is a full session, then you can go ahead and use the school prevention brief early intervention note. And then remember what we saw in the previous slide, where the location is going to be telehealth. Here are a couple more important things to know. After you introduce yourself and say that you're calling from Sentaro, ask if now is a good time to talk and if the client and parent is in an area that is private enough for a conversation. There's going to be some additional information and some additional things that we need to collect that will be in the other training that Sarah sent out for telebehavioral health. Again, the location of services should be O2 Telehealth. And then there are a couple more things here for treatment. So if you are not doing treatment, you do not need to finish this video, but you do need to complete the training that Sarah sent out with the telebehavioral health. And then you need to email your supervisor the answer to the questions on the last slide. So if you are doing treatment in schools, go ahead and continue on. This is a video that talks about the different by phone options for treatment. Again, this video is on YouTube and you will get a link to it if you're doing treatment so that you can watch it a couple of times if you need to. This video is going to talk about the different by phone options available for school-based treatment. So as you can see right here, we have a pre-scheduled appointment that says individual psychotherapy for mental health. We need to change this over to be a phone appointment. So what we do is go to schedule, and then individual psychotherapy for mental health, we change to individual psychotherapy for mental health by phone, and we change this office to telehealth. And then we click submit. And we can see that that appointment has been changed to a phone appointment here. Now, if you're just scheduling something that it was not prearranged and pre-put on your schedule, you will go to Client Activity, select your client, select your client program, and then select your activity. So the activities we're going to be using the most are CPST in office, individual psychotherapy for mental health by phone, and psychotherapy intake for mental health by phone. So once we do one of these activities, and we're going to do individual psychotherapy for mental health by phone here, we're going to change the service location to telehealth and click submit. And then when we go to keep this, we're going to make sure that the times are correct. Add our service document. And then you can see that this looks just like a normal psychotherapy note that we do here. So here's the cover sheet, the goals addressed. There's no treatment plan, so it's not pulling them in here. And then the intervention response and progress. Don't forget to have the client rate the progress. Your interactive complexity. Your additional services, and then your signature. So this all looks the same as it would if you were doing just a general psychotherapy note in the office. Now, something to note on this, I've gotten a couple questions about how we do the psychosocial exam. Let me pull that up. think it's on the first page. So right here, when we're doing mood, affect, thought, behavior, do those the best you can. The one that might give you a little bit of trouble is affect. So you can put your best guess based on how the client is talking to you, and then make a note down here that your information was limited because the session took place over the phone. And then that will also be an issue if you do a diagnostic assessment over the phone. There might be a few things that you're going to have to just take your best guess on and then type that into the box. So please let me know if you have any questions, or speak to your supervisor if you have any questions. Thank you. So similar to the prevention decision tree, we have a treatment decision tree. Not to make things any more confusing. It's a different color, so hopefully that will help you keep them a little bit more separated. So you're going to start with the first question again. Does your treatment client have a telebehavioral health addendum? And if they do not, you're going to add one, remembering that each client only needs one. If they do, then your next question is, are you speaking with the parent or the client? So if you're speaking with a parent in treatment, then your documentation is going to be the CPST, just like it's always been. And then make sure that your service location is telehealth. If you're talking to the client, then you have one more question, and that is, are you having an actual session over the phone with a clinician intervention and a client response where you're working on treatment plan goals, or are you just doing a brief check-in? So if you're doing a brief check-in, you're going to use the CPST here. And if you're doing an actual session where you had an intervention and a client response, these are going to be a little bit longer, then you can go ahead and use the individual psychotherapy for mental health by phone. Now, don't forget, in both of these documents, you're going to use the telehealth location instead of using whatever you would use before. So that's kind of an overview of the changes that affect the school-based program. Don't forget that in addition to this training, you also need to complete the telebehavioral health training that Sarah sent out. It's a PowerPoint. I have a picture of the first slide on my next slide. And then after you view that, you need to let your supervisor know that you've completed that training. And then there are some questions at the end of that you need to also send an email to your supervisor, letting them know that you know the answers to the questions. So you'll answer those in your email. So this is what the first page of the telebehavioral healthcare PowerPoint that Sarah sent out looks like. So if you don't have that, let your supervisor know and they can get you a copy of it. I'm also going to drop a copy of it into the Google Docs folder that we're using. So here are the changes for today. Hopefully it's not too overwhelming. If you have any questions, watch this video. You can also watch the individual videos on YouTube, and then you can look at those two decision trees, one for prevention and one for treatment, to kind of guide you through those decisions there. So keep up your great work. Let us know if you have any questions, and have a great day.